Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Thomas, for inviting EFET to this very nice conference. For those of you who don't really know EFET, we're the European Federation of Energy Traders. We represent around 100 trading companies of different origins throughout the EU and the rest of Europe. Today, I was asked to talk about capacity markets. At EFET, we like to call them capacity mechanisms because we think actually many capacity mechanisms are not markets, and that's part of the problem with them. And we've gone through a lot of thinking among traders. Some of our members are utility-backed companies who may be interested. You may think about it, about getting more subsidies in a way, or more payments for having capacity available. So we've been kind of like thinking a lot whether capacity markets were actually a problem or not, and in the bigger policy framework in Europe, whether it was a really big danger for the internal energy market or not. So today we're gonna have a look at different elements. We're gonna try to dig in the issue of generation and demand adequacy. Try to check as well what the dangers, the real dangers of capacity markets or capacity mechanisms are for the internal energy market, and then trying to see why and how the internal energy market can or cannot deliver on the issue of adequacy. So on generation and demand adequacy, there are a few problems that have triggered the recent developments in many countries in Europe around capacity mechanisms. Definitely what we hear about the increased penetration of renewables has been identified as one of the main problems. This is the case in most countries where capacity mechanisms are being implemented, already implemented, but that may not be the only problem, as Stephen pointed out earlier, and Marco as well. There may be a peak problem, like some other flexibility problems, not necessarily all linked to renewables. But it is definitely a challenge. And even in markets where, like France, for instance, where it's more a peak problem than a renewables penetration problem, the more we go into the years, the more renewables there is likely to be, and the more renewables is likely to be a problem added to the peak problem. Definitely for us also, the lack of maturity of intraday and balancing markets are an issue. We're working on it with the help of NSOE as well. And of other stakeholders. We hope that with better functioning intraday markets and balancing markets, part of the problems of adequacy and for generation, but also demand, could be solved. The lack of consideration for demand side response and management in the market is definitely a problem too. I'm very happy that we heard so much about it today. We really hear that there's more traction for the subject lately. But this is definitely the demand side management, demand side participation is definitely part of the solution for managing generation adequacy. The excessive risks for investors and the lack of sufficient forward price signals has been one of the problems as well. Forward markets are not sufficiently developed all around Europe, and especially cross-border forward markets. We are in discussions at the EU level to finalize the market model for forward markets, and there I know that my colleagues at the table are very involved in that as well. But this is definitely an issue. Like what kind of signal can you give to investors when they invest in plans for 20, 30, 40 years if you also don't have the right forward price signals. And finally, regulatory risk was mentioned a few times. That's definitely a problem. Whether it's for specific policies to promote certain types of energy or to exclude certain types of energy, that's definitely an issue that impacts the market as a whole, and adequacy in particular. So basically, we have this question. We have two main questions, like, are we able to sustain price spikes which may be really high? The problem is that question is not really asked to be answered by market participants, by consumers, but it's answered by national governments without necessarily taking into account the view of professionals and the ones impacted by price spikes. And the second question is, can we really count, even if they work perfectly, on forward market to provide the right investment signals? And that's still quite an open question for sure. So we talked a little bit about renewable energy and how it was highlighted to be at the center of the capacity mechanisms debate. We see that with renewable energy operating aid, basically you shift the problem that is created by the intermittency of renewable energy to different players in the market, to TSOs, to other generators, and actually we see capacity mechanisms there in the middle. We're just putting another piece in the puzzle, but we're not getting out of this circle. Like, we continue to shift problems all around, and there's a lot of money. We heard about the amounts that Germany, for instance, is spending on its RES support schemes. Also, like, the amounts that private companies are losing because of that. So this is still money going around, and we're not getting out of the problem. Right now, this is an even heavier map than the few that were shown this afternoon. There are plenty of different initiatives in Europe for capacity mechanisms. Some are already in place, some are in development, some are just discussed. But we heard about the need to have a European idea behind that problem of adequacy. We already have national-oriented RES support schemes, priority dispatch conditions. Now we're adding one piece to the puzzle, and again, we're adding it nationally. So we can see, like, for instance, like Marco was saying, that France and Germany are discussing to see how they could make their capacity mechanism a bit more compatible, but they will still develop, each will develop their own, and it's likely that for the moment, from what we see from the French discussion at least, the cooperation is limited just to the exclusion of a specific, like the inclusion of a specific coefficient that takes into account interconnection, not really the participation of a foreign participant to the French capacity market. So we really, like, the risk is really to add one more diverse scheme that is incompatible throughout Europe from country to country. So yeah, indeed, this patchwork of capacity mechanism, the patchwork of RES support scheme, the likelihood from what we see also in certain network developments of diverse implementation throughout, like, between the different countries, all that for us is very worrying. We like, our traders operate throughout Europe. They don't really want to know about borders. They don't really want to know about different regulation from one country to the other. What's important to them is that there's no distortion to the energy market, whether it's forward prices, whether it's day ahead, intraday balancing. You want something that is harmonized throughout Europe, or at least where the policy instruments are being coordinated. And the problem with that, and I think Stephen talked a lot about the intraday and the balancing markets, we also think that the forward market is extremely important, and because that's the one that gives investment signals. You don't, yeah, again, you don't invest on your plans just based on certain expectations that you have on the day-ahead market or on the intraday market. So really also, this is like nationalistic interventions like the ones we are seeing right now are extremely detrimental to forward prices. So, and what we think as well is that they are actually more expensive in the end than trying to fully commit to the internal energy market. That's problem like that we see in Germany, for instance, with more and more consumers not being happy about RES support schemes, attacking some provisions that exempt some industrial from the specific contribution for RES support. So this is expensive. This is not accepted by the population in general. So let's do something about it. And what to do about it? I think the Commission a couple of weeks ago published, well, not even a couple of weeks ago, they published a communication package which is very interesting. It's the second statement, let's say, on capacity mechanism from the Commission, but it's the first strong one. I think they really emphasize the need for market integration. They sketch out the phase out of priority dispatch and the gradual introduction of balanced responsibility for all producers. They also insist on the inclusion of demand side in the market, which will of course require a significant overhaul of certain rules so that the rules are not designed only for generators, but also for demand side participation. And on capacity mechanisms itself, they really insist on the need for assessment for the needs of a specific capacity mechanism and assessment of where you stand as a country compared to the internal energy market, and what you can do, what you can improve in your implementation of the internal energy market to avoid having to implement a likely to be distortive capacity mechanism. We're also happy to see that further reflections are going on, such as the one that Stephen presented on flexibility option. We really want all participants to think actually to think outside the box in terms of idea, but inside the box of the IEM, of the internal energy market, to avoid unnecessary and avoidable intervention that would damage the price signal of the energy market. So that's very quickly a list we came up with in February this year. That we don't, maybe capacity mechanisms are necessary in certain countries. We think we need to do, like government need to do their best to implement the internal energy market and check if that works or not before starting building a capacity mechanism. But if they do, that's the elements they really need to pay attention to. So, for instance, have an active demand side or consumer side participation, like designing the mechanism in such a way that the price signals for capacity go away when the adequacy is met in the country, have a market-based design, etc. So these are elements that you can see in this paper, which is freely available on our website. I encourage you to have a look at them. This list is quite equivalent to the one published by the Commission around the same time, I think end of February 2011. So we're in the same state of mind, let's say, with the Commission on this, and we really would like the member states to go through this list without having the Commission chasing them after they started a regulatory proposal or legislative proposal. So in conclusion, so that's what EFET defends, basically. So do what you can to finalize, as a country, to finalize the internal energy market, and do what you can as European institutions as well, including our friends from NSOE and Acer, to finalize the intraday and balancing market, the forward market, the day-ahead market. We think that REST support scheme, they need rationalization and coordination. There needs to be balancing responsibility. All this will not happen in a day. All this will probably need to be gradual, but there's a significant change needed so that we get out of the circle we saw earlier on. And yeah, really insisting on the need for a European approach and not national approach. We've seen the damage of this with the Renewable Energy Directive and what it has brought us. We're trying to cure a problem with the same type of solution, and this is clearly wrong. Thank you very much.